We've got the Fender Blues Deluxe Reissue back in the shop today. It's the same amp that I diagnosed that power problem on, and it's worked fine as far as the power is concerned ever since I made that repair. But the tubes have started to act erratically, so it'll cut out a little bit and then come back on. And I noticed one of the tubes wasn't lighting. I'm not exactly sure on what the configuration is, but either way, one is lit and one is not, and they should be lit. So we're going to pull these tubes out. The owner of this amp purchased some new tubes, and we're going to go ahead and swap them all out. Usually when you buy tubes, he bought them from Audio Direct or Audio Tubes Direct. Usually they match these tubes so that they're close to one another as far as their characteristics. Tubes are kind of funny in that you can build two tubes exactly the same, and there'll be just slight differences between them. So what a lot of tube manufacturers do is they build thousands of tubes, and then they test them and they match them together so they get tubes that behave very similarly instead of tubes that are wildly different. So these tubes should be matched. Yeah, there you go. See how they're, it even says matched set right on there. Don't know if you can see that or not. So those are locked together. And these tubes are usually like they're stepping up incrementally from very small to very large amplification. And that way you don't necessarily have to match these, because if they perform slightly differently, it's okay across the amp. So I got a lot of comments the last time I opened this amp up. Guys were really concerned about these caps in here. Capacitor is just it's like a battery in an electronic circuit, but with a capacitor they have the ability to give all their stored energy up very quickly, unlike a battery. They can give all of their power in a fraction of a second, and so they are something to be concerned about. This amp has been turned off for a long time. I've not turned it on when I put it back in the shop here. To get these larger tubes out, there's some metal wings that you have to push up on slightly. So I'm pushing up on them with my pointer fingers, and I'm using my pinkies and other fingers just to kind of rotate him out. This is the tube that wasn't lighting. Alright, tube's out. I've got one that says balanced triodes. I'm trying to see if I've got a tube that needs to be balanced. These don't have markings on them that would say that. I'm going to choose this last slot. You do have to be very careful to line these up. There's only one way that these go in. There's a gap in the pins. If you can see this, it's missing a pin right here. And that's how you tell where to put this in, what orientation. There's in these plugs, there's a gap on the back side. So when I pulled these out, that gap was towards the front of the amp. So as I'm putting these in, I'm very gently placing them in and just getting it perfectly lined up before I put any pressure on. Now for the big ones. Essentially the amp would kind of come in and out just a little bit. And it was my assumption that it most likely needed new tubes. These tubes have been in the amp for a very long time. And as long as the tube is good, you can leave it in there. I mean, you can leave a tube in the amp indefinitely, as long as its properties didn't change. I'm going to package these back up in the boxes the new ones came in. These aren't necessarily bad. So I just want to make sure you take care of your old parts. You could make the wrong assumption. They might not actually be bad at all. And again, these have an alignment pin. On these tubes, there's a slightly raised spot right here. It's a tooth on this circular piece. And once you get that lined up, it'll let you press the tube in place. It also, on this amp, is towards the front of the amp. You don't need to force this stuff. Just be very gentle with it. That's how a lot of problems happen. I'm going to plug the amp in now, and I am going to leave this panel open. I don't need to service anything up in here, but really just for the video so that we can see these tubes light up. We should get all the tubes lit, and this is the area you don't want to have your hands or fingers in here. These caps are the ones that people are most concerned with. They essentially, the caps are those little batteries I was telling you about. But the difference between this and like a C battery, I mean, you can see it's very similar in size to a C, is a C battery is only 1.5 volts. And if you can see on the side here, that's rated for 500 volts. There's not a lot of energy in here, there's a lot of voltage in there, and it'll give you a good shock. Now when I plug this in, this system will have about 400 volts in some places, so you have to be extremely careful, and I'm not going to be reaching in here. I just want to see the tubes light. So we go for standby and on. Yeah, we got light on both tubes now. This is lit, and that is lit. And you can hear it start to hum now. Now this is a guitar amp. I have a bass upstairs, so I'll allow this to continue warming up. You can hear the reverb working. If I ever get a chance to open a reverb up, they're so simple. It's kind of ridiculous how simple a reverb is. It's just a spring that runs across. Of course, that's assuming that it's a spring reverb, but the spring reverbs literally have a spring. It runs across, and there's an electrical connection on one end of the spring, an electrical connection on the other end, and as it vibrates, it changes the I believe the resistance in the spring. And they use that as an input to vary the sound of the guitar. We can turn the reverb way up. I'm just going to tap it. You can hear that like boom. But if I turn it down, you don't hear that spring. So here's quiet, and here's a reverb all the way up. It sounds just like a spring. That's because that's exactly what it is in there. So I've got my bass down here. A little volume. Well, you don't like the way I play? Not a whole lot of noise. Pretty quiet. I say that's repaired. We have to keep an eye on it over time and make sure that it doesn't cut out the way it used to, which I'm guessing it won't, considering that that larger tube is lit now. Sydney, what? Can you go outside and go potty? All right.